what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me, Christopher Fry. We are co-directors and co-founders of the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival coming up in late September. More information on that to come later. So Chris, how's it going today?
It's going well. I'm looking forward to talking about all the matchups for March Madness that happened this past weekend.
Because
that's what we do on this show. We all talk basketball, college basketball, and
then maybe if we have a little time, we'll talk movies, but mostly basketball. No, I do wish I kind of wish I had another podcast just about NCAA tournament because this is my favorite time of the year, Chris. There's Oscar season. And there's NCAA tournament time. Those are kind of my two peak times where I'm like, I get all excited and things are happening.
Understood.
Yes, my brain is a little bit on basketball today, but I'm going to try to steer it away and get back over to movies, which is what we actually sit down to record every week when we do this show. Today's episode, we will be reviewing and discussing the new Ghostbusters movie called Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. I don't like that name. We'll be discussing that movie, as well as I'll get to hear a little bit of Chris's thoughts on the previous Ghostbusters movie, which I've never heard him talk about because you just saw it recently, Ghostbusters Afterlife movie. So we'll kind of get a little bit of glimpse into his thoughts on that one as well.
And we didn't review it on the show, so listeners don't know your thoughts on it as well.
That's true. That's true. They don't. So we'll be talking about the latest Ghostbusters movies. I've got some news items to share along the way as well. A little bit of an update on the Joker movie. I don't know if you've heard some news on that, Chris, but some interesting things. Yeah, some interesting little things. Timothy Chalamet's playing Bob Dylan. Do we know about that?
I did. I think I actually saw on the interwebs this weekend some photos of him as
I got some details on that production, what's going on. And then our favorite ghost with the most is back. Since we're talking Ghost, I thought we might want to at least just kind of acknowledge the fact that a teaser trailer for Beetlejuice has emerged. And I just want to give some thoughts on that really quick as well. We're going to do all of that. And then Chris is going to wrap up the show with us with a kind of a one-sided review because I was too slack to get out to the theater to see this film, where Chris will be discussing the film, The American Society of Magical Negroes for us. Giving his review of that film. Will it be a recommendation? Will it be an anti-recommendation? We'll wait and see at the end of the episode. So, Chris, there's a lot going on we're going to talk about, but let's get into our first review, if that's okay with you.
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Here we are talking about Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire.
For the first time in New York history, a room full of people froze to death in July.
It's an unimaginable evil with the power to kill by fear itself.
Like literally scared to death?
Now it's headed straight for us.
Is something trying to get out?
Many things.
It's commanding an army of the undead.
I think we're all going to die.
Hold on to your ass!
This could bring about the end of humankind.
Ghostbusters Afterlife was released in November of 2021. Audiences were slowly returning to theaters, eager to put the pandemic behind them, and some as eager to forget the 2016 divisive reboot of the franchise that starred an all-female ghostbusting squad. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire picks up after the events of Afterlife, with the Spangler family having relocated from a small town in Oklahoma back to the firehouse in New York City, where the original ghostbusting team from the 1984 film based their operations. An ancient evil force is accidentally unleashed, that wreaks havoc and threatens a second ice age. Who are you going to call, Alan?
Who am I going to call?
Are you going to call the makers of this film and shame them? What would you make of the film?
Okay.
And you can relay that back to Afterlife if you need to, because I'll definitely.
I will have to, because I do think they're of a piece that your enjoyment of one kind of has some impact on the enjoyment of the second. Gotcha. or non-enjoyment, sure. Whatever it may be. Because it does, of course, keep on with the same characters that we're introduced to in Afterlife. We've got Paul Rudd as Gary Gruberson, Carrie Coon as Callie Spengler, Finn Wolfhard as Trevor Spengler, and then McKenna Grace as Phoebe Spengler. Yes, 3 of them have the last name Spengler. If you haven't seen these movies, they are related to Egon Spengler from the original Ghostbusters movie. Carrie Coon plays his daughter. And of course, now that he has grandchildren with the 2 others, they befriend Paul Rudd's character, Gary Gruberson, in Afterlife.
He's a teacher.
He's a teacher.
Small town in Oklahoma.
Yeah. So the Afterlife took place in Oklahoma, which was kind of a odd creative choice to put the Ghostbusters franchise out there. I liked Afterlife in general. I felt like that movie leaned way too hard into nostalgia and to try to play every note it could to appease the Ghostbusters fans and not be its own movie as much as it could have.
So in a way, I think you also, which is why I kind of mentioned the setup, you kind of have to reference the 2016 all-female cast, because that, in my opinion, obviously all-female, doing something different, and overall people weren't that fond of it. And so they then kind of went to Afterlife. Mm-hmm. No, yeah, you did. You're on the record as liking it. So then they went to Afterlife and kind of veered. You can't help but think they listened to the hubbub online and it's like, okay, you didn't like the all-female thing, us doing something different and not really keeping the same original. Okay, we're going to go 180 degrees the other way and do Afterlife.
We're going to acknowledge original cast, original story. We're going to make a true sequel to those, but we're going to go stylistically and tonally very differently. I thought Afterlife to me played more like a Spielberg film than it did a Ghostbusters film. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying it was different. I think it didn't quite grab as many audiences as it could have, because everybody wanted the same old Ghostbusters. I want people riding around shooting ghosts and all that. And there was obviously some of that, but not a lot. It was a lot more family drama, and kind of until it got to the point of saying, no, we're just going to replay beat by beat the original Ghostbusters movie within the plot of the film. That's when it kind of lost me a little bit. I felt like it went too deep into nostalgia. So all that to be said, I liked Afterlife. I like what they were doing. Mm-hmm. I like style, tone of it. I generally like the new characters that we're introduced to in Afterlife. So I'm good on Afterlife. It's obvious to me that with Frozen Empire, which is what we're actually here to review, I guess I should get to that now.
Well, it's hard, yeah.
Frozen Empire, it's very painfully obvious to me. The filmmakers said, okay, look, Afterlife wasn't as big a hit as it could have been, and audiences didn't love it as much as it. So let's really go back to making a Ghostbusters movie like the original. And look, I get it. I know why they did that. And overall, as a Ghostbusters movie, it was fine. I think it worked okay. It was slightly humorous, slightly entertaining.
Okay.
I mean,
there's the quote for the Criterion Collection. Slightly entertaining.
It was.
Alan
The
Jackson.
thing is, I'm not going to, I can't walk away and say that there were parts of this film that just bowled me over, that were just so great and entertaining or super funny or whatever. No, it was Ghostbusters light is what I kind of take away from it. What I did like about it is I still like these new characters that we were introduced to in Afterlife, although they really shortchanged most of them in this movie in favor of, well, let's bring back the original members, which I thought was a big mistake. I did not understand why we needed to have Bill Murray, who looked like he was asleep half of this movie.
Oh, my goodness. I would think he would almost pay not to be in this movie. Yeah. He looked so...
I love Bill Murray. This movie does not... He was not on board for this movie. And I'll tell you, of the original Ghostbusters in this movie, Dan Aykroyd was the one I'm like, okay, he actually he had a role. He had a purpose in this movie. And I was okay with him being in it. I just would have been okay if he was the only one and we didn't feel the need to pack in everybody else from the old original. Anyway, I'm dancing around a whole lot to say this movie was barely entertaining enough for me to say
even better, somewhat entertaining too.
where I had a decent time with it, but am I going to say that I was still ultimately feel like they're just not quite hitting where they need to hit with this? Yeah, I still think they're off base on this. Afterlife was a little off base in one direction. This one was a little off base in a slightly different direction, but they're still not quite hitting where they need to be with this franchise. Even though I think the elements are there to do it, they I don't know if it's the story that just didn't know how to utilize the characters and utilize the plot. I don't know if it was still this over reliance on nostalgia, having to bring back so many elements from the original that they didn't need anymore. I don't know. So, barely entertaining. That's what I'm going to say. Chris, I want to hear your thoughts though. What's your thoughts on Frozen Empire and where Ghostbusters are right now in general?
Sure. So, kind of what you were saying, I'll answer your question kind of you were laying out there at the end. And the answer is yes. There were problems with the story and then over-reliance on the cast from, the original 1984 film. Yes. And to me, that's what's wrong with this film. If we look at the last three movies, that's 2016 Ghostbusters, which apparently is called Ghostbusters answer the call, which is bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that movie 2016, and then Afterlife and Frozen Empire. So you look at the three of those and pretend they're on like a scale. Okay, the 2016 Ghostbusters, they wasn't successful, brought the scale well down. Then they put Afterlife on there, and I feel like that kind of balanced out. I'm where you are with Afterlife. I liked it. I just recently saw it. Now, did I appreciate it because it had been ragged on and torn down expectation-wise? I didn't even see it when it came out because I wasn't excited to see a film. I didn't bother seeing it and just caught up with this. So I actually watched it and I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
But I knew, because I've been warned by you, that a lot of the original beats from the 84 film were in this film. Now, I was watching it with my wife and she's like, dude, they're literally doing this. And I'm like, yeah, but I feel like they were kind of to me at least, there again, expectations way down, kind of winking and leaning into it really hard. Really, but yeah. To me, there was a little bit of comedy, and the superstar of Afterlife to me, which I like him anyway, was Paul Rudd.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say McKenna Grace, but that's
no. She's okay. I don't like her apparently as much as lots of other people do. But anyways, I really liked Paul Rudd, and the humor that he was able to bring in the first one really worked too, because it was just kind of this, I don't know, he makes a joke about a stripper pole at one point, just it kind of channeled original Bill Murray humor in a way, which I think is what they were going for. Anyways, so let's move forward to Frozen Empire. And what does that do to the scales? I feel like you were saying, it overcompensated for Afterlife, and so now it's weighing it down again. So I didn't really have a good time with Frozen Empire. I feel like, I will say, let's start off with some good here. The one thing that I thought Frozen Empire improved on from Afterlife, even though it didn't bother me with Afterlife that much, but it improved on coming up with a new plot point story of the Frozen Empire that's kind of in the title, this ancient evil that comes around. So they had something new to do. So you didn't know there's going to be a gatekeeper. There's going to be now, did they still come up with somewhat lame terms instead of Keymaster? This time it was Fire Master or Flame Master.
I know.
Kind of
but you're right. It was I almost equated it to there was a Ghostbusters animated cartoon show, and every week they would have a new villain of this is kind of they had a new villain of the week. And at least it wasn't Gozar. It wasn't, bringing up old names or my fear was that they were going to do a repeat of Ghostbusters 2, Vigo, bring him back somehow. I'm like, no, good. This is all new. I'm like that.
So I thought that was a strength of the film. Now the problem for me was it got so weighed down with, I just feel like there were too many characters.
There was too many characters.
And bringing back the old characters, all of them that could, because Harold Ramis has passed away, which they handled that in Afterlife. they bring him on. Now, unlike you, Bill Murray, yes, totally checked out. I felt like Dan Aykroyd was trying really, 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 really hard. He was good because that's his role is, he does as Ray, he is kind of the nerdy, trying really hard guy. So he was okay, but maybe just he was dialed up a little bit too much for me. Now, the person who that's
Dan Aykroyd to me in general, I think. But yeah.
fair enough. But the one that I actually appreciated his own presence on screen was actually Ernie Hudson as Winston, because he just seemed to be, I guess because he could be there just as kind of to help move things along. He wasn't trying to get a lot of laughs. He was just there to, I thought he was really good in his portions.
The reason I like Ernie Hudson's role and I like Dan Aykroyd's role is that they played a role. They had a purpose.
Better than Bill Murray.
Well, because Eddie, I like the way that they've set up where Eddie is now, Hudson is now, he kind of runs the Ghostbusters enterprise, which I think that's a cool idea. That's great. You've taken him, his experience. He's now become kind of the corporate head of this, and it makes perfect sense. Dan Aykroyd's the one who, initially, his character was the one who believed in all this back in the original Ghostbusters. He was really the most passionate about it. And here he is now kind of living a very small, simple life, but he gets to be wrapped back into this, and he's excited about it. So I think those two roles work great. Bill Murray's had no purpose. And also the same goes for Janine.
Annie. And
Annie
love
Potts. I love Annie Potts too, but she was pointless in this film also.
I thought in Afterlife they used her just enough that it was okay. Yeah. But in this one, it's like...
When they put the uniform on her, like she's a Ghostbuster, I'm like, okay, no, you're just playing to the cheap seats now at this point. So,
at the end of the film, we won't spoil or anything, but end of the film, there were so many cast members, and at the conclusion, it was just like, you get a proton pack, you get a proton pack, everybody gets a proton pack. They were felt like 15 or 30 Ghostbusters running around, and it was just like, okay, this is, at one point, actually, towards the conclusion, I'd have to see the film again to remember exactly why he checked out. But at one point, I was like, where's Finn Wolfhard? There were so many people running around, and then he shows back. I'm like, oh, okay, there he is. Now he's here for the big conclusion. But I was like,
that's part of the problem is I felt like I wanted to see more. Okay, look, this whole premise of, you've got the Spangler family from Afterlife, the three of them, and you've got Gruberson now with them. So there's a foursome. It was a little bit of a logical leap between movies to be like, okay, so these four are now the Ghostbusters.
It didn't
bother me. No, it's like I kind of once I got adjusted to that in the first few minutes, I'm like, okay, fine. I don't know how we got here, but go for it. And I'll tell you, the opening sequence, the four of them driving around, busting the first ghost we see, almost like a little mini little adventure, was fun. I'm like, okay, this is what this film is going to give us, is these four, and we're kind of building this relationship between them, and we're seeing them kind of work as a team and do these things. I'm like, that's cool. I want to see that. But then it kind of forgot about those four and just kind of splintered them all up and added in all these other characters to the point where it just kind of lost its vision of that. I'm like, that was an entertaining scene. That was a good moment for me to say, I see what this movie's trying to do now, but then it just kind of lost sight of it.
So in improv, a lot of times, which is not improv, Alan and I are giving a review, but they often do this thing where they say yes and.
Right.
And so I'm going to say yes and, or in this case, yes but for me. So yes, that opening sequence was a perfect encapsulation of the movie because it was exciting. It was like, okay, this is a traditional Ghostbusters movie. They're running through town, zapping buildings and kind of doing some damage.
Yeah.
But they are after a ghost, and okay. Good. But in that opening scene, two things kind of gave me a yellow flag. In Afterlife, the character of Phoebe, socially awkward.
Yeah.
And she's still socially awkward in this film, which is fine. But in the first film, they used this thing where she would tell jokes that would kind of fall flat. But that actually has a really cool payoff in that film. At the end, it actually worked. It's good. I really, 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 really liked that through line in that film. This film, in the opening scene, when they're doing that chase, she throws out this shit, and I'm like, oh man. And I was like, and if it had continued, if they'd had some kind of payoff again, maybe it would have worked. But no, it was just like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
They're kind of, not only are they, in this film, not only are they going to capitalize off nostalgia for the original Ghostbusters, they're going to try to capitalize for nostalgia from a 2021 film, Afterlife. Remember this thing? Remember how that was cool in the 2021? Oh, this is going to be... And not only that, in the same sequence, they do the joke thing, and then the thing that was kind of unique about Afterlife was the side gunner chair that Phoebe got to use, and they trot that out. And not only that, they don't just like you, but they make a big deal about it to me. And I was like,
but I did think that was,
they're just relying too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
The jokes, I'm with you. I'm okay. I agree with you on that. The gunner chair, the little flying drone thing, all the things that they introduced in the first, the Afterlife movie, they bring back to show you that they've kind of got it mastered now. They're like doing it. I'm like, I'm cool with this. This is what I wanted to see. Like in Afterlife, they're learning this stuff. They're figuring it out. And this one, now they're a little more pros at it. They've been doing it. It's like, I totally got that. So that did.
I guess if they had treated her using the chair like they treated the drone part, I'd have been fine, because the drone parts didn't bother me. It was something about, I don't know. There was just something about it that was close. But okay, and then so I mentioned the nostalgia for Afterlife, which is only 2021, but throwing out scenes like the New York Public Library scene, and I was just like, oh, and okay, I'm like, it almost worked because you're like, oh, there's a sub-library. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So maybe it wasn't, and with the statues out front, like, okay, maybe it's going to be okay. But Dan Aykroyd has a moment that is exact. And I'm like, that to me was unexcusable. He sees a ghost and I'm
on board
like,
with you.
Oh my gosh.
When they kind of recreate that library, I'm like, there was no point for that. There was no point other than, look what we did. We're in the library again. So, of course, Dan Aykroyd has to see the same ghost that freaked him out in the library in the first movie. That was inexcusable to me.
It didn't build on anything.
And it didn't make sense.
It was just like no.
It didn't make sense. Okay, so, I don't understand it. No, I love the sub-basement. The whole Patton Oswalt kind of makes an appearance in the sub-basement. He was a character, although he plays into the too many characters in this movie.
Yeah.
I liked his role. I liked the scenes with him in it, but then he was gone and we never saw him again. He was in there for 5 minutes and that's it.
And I think I agree. So suffers from some of the sins of Afterlife, like a lot of cameo, but Patton Oswalt worked. What if, I'll throw this out because you and I are kind of on the same page about bringing back the original cast. Even though you liked Ray, you liked Dan Aykroyd's stuff, I thought he was okay, maybe dialed too high. If you didn't have Ray at all, you could have Patton Oswalt provide some of that geek lore know-how.
They were a little repetitive, those two roles.
And they did. So you could have just used Patton Oswalt, which would have been a new character, but you wouldn't have had the tag along of the old character, and you wouldn't have needed it.
No, that's true. I could see that.
And I thought, even though I thought it was distracting because it was Kumail Nanjiani, who I like him, but using him and kind of depending on him so much in this film, it kind of hurt it a little bit, but at least he played along to the new storyline. But because he was the flame or fire master, it was a little clunky. But
I think our review is explaining a lot of the problem. Is we've rattled off so many characters, so many different plot beats in this movie, and that is the problem. Is it's just too much. It tried to do with too many people. We haven't even gotten
to. I could mention two more characters who carried over from Afterlife, which I get, but they just didn't give them anything
podcast?
to do. There's podcast, and even worse than that, there's Lucky, which when I was talking with my wife, she's like, who's Lucky again? I'm like, that's the girl from Afterlife. She's like, oh, right.
And somehow now she
shows up in New York. She's like, oh, I'm here interning.
I'm here, and I'm an expert now in these fields, and
I get to throw around a proton pack just like everybody. It's just like... Okay.
There's a lot of leaps of faith. I will say, I ragged on when you and I talked casually about Afterlife, and I was telling you about that movie years ago.
Yes.
I ragged on the fact that they had a character named Podcast in the movie, which I thought was just kind of dumb. And Podcast is still in this movie.
I did not. Podcast has grown up so much. I did not recognize him.
I didn't recognize, but he's also a lot better now. He is a better character.
Right.
Actually, I thought the stuff with him and Dan Aykroyd was actually really funny and really good. So I'm like, cool. If that's the angle they're going to play with this. Podcast went with them up to New York. Again, Podcast doesn't have any parents. I guess Podcast it's just okay that he just took off with this random family to go to New York now from Oklahoma. Anyway, a lot of leaps of faith judgment we have to take with how this entire cast has now moved to New York and what they're doing.
Doesn't he at one point pretend that his parents call and he plays airport noises or something?
But he says he's at an internship down in Alabama at the Space Center. I'm like, okay, well that's even weaker. It's like, Anyway, I get why they had to move to New York because, again, I just think the franchise needed them to be in New York.
Yeah,
but
that wasn't the problem.
to
but
bring
then
all the
tagging
characters
along,
with
yeah.
them. I would have been happy if it was just the three Spengler family, and then Gruberson tags along because he's now kind of a adopted stepfather.
I call him Tag Along Gary.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I call him.
And the four of them, that's the only four that we needed to come from Afterlife, and I would have been fine with that.
Yeah,
So,
agreed.
honestly, this movie could have worked a lot better if you just boiled it down to the four of them.
Yeah.
And then you bring in the Ernie Hudson character as kind of the head of the Ghostbusters enterprise. I'm saying take Dan Aykroyd, maybe eliminate the Patton Oswalt character and let Dan Aykroyd be the role that Patton Oswalt played. Let Dan Aykroyd be this
Some people still want to see the original piece, so have him take over the Patton.
This was his life. He was all about the occult
enough.
and learning about that.
Fair enough. You don't need both. I was saying keep Patton Oswalt, get rid of Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah,
but
you
you're
just
right.
need one or the
Either
other.
way. I got you. Yeah,
There's
yeah,
no
yeah.
point in bringing in a brand new character, Patton Oswalt, when you've got Ray Stantz right there, ready to go to talk about history and lore and all this. Get rid of Bill Murray. I'm sorry.
He didn't want to be a unit
No,
anyway.
I'm sorry. Get rid of Annie Potts. She's great, but she plays no role in this film. Get rid of the two people that tagged along from Afterlife podcast and, definitely Lucky. Podcast I'm okay with.
Lucky
Find a better reason for podcast to be in New York.
How did you feel about Lars Penfield? Can you even tell me who that is?
Well, we didn't need him, right? I mean, there
He
was
is
no
yet
reason.
another new employee of the
Yeah, didn't need
Ghostbusters
him.
people. Didn't need him.
No. It just too many characters, too many plot beats in this thing.
Agreed.
I will say on a positive, I did really like the look and the vibe of the villain.
I did too.
Although it was a little underused. I thought the ending, the climax was very underwhelming. It was kind of like, that's it? So we're done now? Okay. And I kind of expecting kind of something to happen afterwards, but never did because it was kind of an anticlimactic or really fizzle of an ending. But the villain was cool. I mean, I thought the villain looked really cool.
I liked the big baddie. I also appreciated kind of like a shadow. I don't want to say, well, I'm just going to use the term because it's not exactly spot on, but a shadow henchman that kind of enables some things that I don't want to ruin anything. But I really, 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 really liked
that whole subplot. With the young girl.
I'm not even going to. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I would just say it involves Phoebe.
Yes, it involves Phoebe
and a friendship.
Yeah.
That's developed there, and we're just going to leave it at that. But I thought that I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah,
I really thought that was probably the best plot point of the film that I enjoyed. I was the most intrigued by.
Right.
They could have done a little more with it.
Right.
But overall, I thought that was good. So, yeah, I'm batting about, it's a little more than 50-50 on this film. I'm going to go 60-40 positive to negative. I mean, I think in overall, there's a little more here that I still ultimately found okay than not. But it's still just, I think it was a little, I don't even know how to equate it to Afterlife, like whether I felt.
Oh, I definitely.
I know you felt better about
I'm
Afterlife
higher on
than
Afterlife
this
than
one.
this one, yeah.
I did enjoy some of the entertainment value a little bit more here than I did Afterlife, but I liked the character development and the cast a lot more in their roles in Afterlife. Carrie Coon is Kylie Spengler. I thought she was great in Afterlife. I really liked her character. She was interesting. Here, she was nothing. I mean, it's like, what is her role? Like, who is she? What is her character? We don't know. All I know is that she seems like a kind of a grumpy mom. Like that's it. And that's because they didn't give these four originals.
They had too many characters.
Much time to do anything.
Time. Yeah, I think
Paul Rudd was criminally underused in this film.
He was also, and unfortunately, the one thing that was like basically like his big joke they'd ruined in the trailer.
Yeah.
And my wife, which never really says anything during movies or whatever. I mean, she will sometimes comment, but I often joke if we see a movie during the trailers and they play it and I think they're like eye rolling things that I really hate, I'll just give kind of a thumbs down. When he started doing the joke from the trailer, which I can spoil because everybody, if you see the trailer, where he's like basically sings the song. He doesn't sing, but he just talks the song. There's something bad in you. Who are you going to call her? Like, busted, makes me feel good. She just reached over and just like gave me the thumbs down. I'm like, it's Paul Rudd. But she's like, no.
If it hadn't been in the trailer, it would have been really funny.
Right. And I think, he was criminally underused. Both he and I think there are just too many characters. I loved his shtick and his screen time in Afterlife. And I thought it really suffered here in Frozen Empire.
Well, I mean, same with Finn Wolfhard. I mean, again, say what you want about him. I'm not saying I liked his performance in either film, but he's also very little in this film.
Right.
We have more of McKenna Grace, which I
True.
like because I do like her character Phoebe. I think she's, to me, a standout of that new cast. But all four of them were still much more underused than they should have been because of all these other characters getting added to the mix. And then plot beats that were just a lot of extra plot added in just for the sake of adding plot. And
agreed.
Yeah. So it's tough. I mean, and the film had the potential, it had the bones to be a much better movie. And it got weighted down by its own trying to satisfy all audiences by adding everything it could to this film. And in doing so, I don't think it's going to fully satisfy any audience, you know?
Can we let the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man die?
Yes, please. That was the one thing in Afterlife I thought was just ridiculous. I did not like it in Afterlife, and I certainly did not like it here in this movie. It's like, I get it. You want to have a callback to the big Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
How many callbacks do you need?
But having him in Afterlife, that was the groan-worthy part for me in Afterlife, was that scene where the marshmallows are animated and doing silly things in the department store. I'm like, that was so dumb. And here they're at it again. They're just all over the place, and it was annoying. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because the Marshmallow Men just did not fit the tone of Afterlife. You know, that movie wanted to play things a little bit more grounded, a little bit more serious, a little bit more, emotional. And then you add these little CGI Marshmallow Men doing silly things at a department store. I'm like, okay, you lost me there. So,
right.
They need to die. I made the mistake of staying after the credits to see if there was a little scene. And of course there was. And unfortunately it involved the same friends, which did not like. Okay.
Yeah. That was the nail in the coffin. I was like, all right, I wasn't a fan. Then the bonus like, come on, let them go. Let them go.
Yeah. Well, okay. That was a lot more stream of conscious review discussion, but I liked it. It was good. We kind of got through our thoughts of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, as well as hearing a little bit of thoughts of Ghostbusters Afterlife from us as well. Overall, I want this franchise to work. I really do. I think there's a fun franchise here. I think they've got some fun, interesting characters to work with. They just need to let the new characters do their thing. They need to keep the spirit of the original films. I think that's fine, but not harken back and build in moments from the original films so much and rely on that. You know, the idea of a family that now is sitting in New York City in a fire department and running out and catching ghosts, you can have fun with that. That is a fun premise, and we have good people to work with on that. Just let them do it. And I think we just missed the boat with this one, unfortunately.
Well, and the fact that there is an entity that is now called Ghost Corps, which I guess is like the franchise building that they're going to have. Like, you know, it's like 20th Century Fox, but at the beginning, it's like, this is a Ghost Corps production or whatever. I don't know I don't know who, maybe one of the Jason Reitman, maybe he's the founder of like Ghost Corps or whatever.
So. That started up before Afterlife.
Yeah, it was Ghost Corps was Afterlife was a production of that. So I guess we are in for at least another sequel, probably. We'll see.
And I'm fine with it. Just hopefully they're inching further and further away from nostalgia.
Right.
And just letting this be a truly new set of characters and new stories. That's what they need.
I hope so. Yeah. I haven't given up on it, but Afterlife, actually having seen it, maybe got my expectations for this one up a little too high, because I was like, okay, it's going to work. But then, so we'll see. We'll see.
All right. Well, that is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It is playing in movie theaters right now as we record this. I'm going to say if you liked Afterlife, you could go see this. You may come away a little disappointed, or you may come away with a kind of a neutral feeling like I did on it. It was barely entertaining. I'm going to stick by my quote on that. Chris found it to be a little less than Afterlife, or less than Afterlife, or what Afterlife had set up as a potential new premise.
Right. If you're a big Ghostbusters fan, I think you'll probably want to see this.
There's something there.
Yeah, there's something there.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a quick break, Chris. When we come back, we're going to have some movie news that I kind of teased at the beginning of the show. And we're also going to have your review of the American Society of Magical Negroes. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with Foot Candle Films in just a moment.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. Alan and Chris here. We had our review of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire at the top part of the show. But Chris, let's go ahead and now turn our attention to some movie news.
Okay.
I like to comb the internet and find news items regarding movies. It has been said that sometimes I maybe spend more time reading about movies being made than actually seeing the movies when they actually come out. But that's okay. That's who I am. I enjoy this stuff. So I do find a few news items I'm going to share with you. I have a feeling you're probably aware of many of these items, but let's just hit them and talk about them anyway. Sure. Because I think a couple weeks have gone by and we haven't talked about the Joker movie coming out, Joker 2 or Joker, what are they calling it? Folie à Deux.
Yeah.
This is the Todd Phillips movie that is the sequel to the Joker that starred Joaquin Phoenix back in, what year was the original Joker movie, Chris? My years all run together so bad. I never know.
It was pre the pandemic.
So 2019?
Okay, so right before. That seems about right.
Maybe. Yeah, let's go with that. So some information has been announced about this film. And I think they keep leaking out tiny little tidbits along the way, trying to build up some anticipation for this film.
First tidbit, I guess, was, we're doing it.
Right, yeah.
And because for a while it was like, the whole DC thing's always been cloudy. It's like, no, these are in the universe. These are not in the universe. This is a standalone. It's like, nope, no surprise. Joker was really popular. Joaquin Phoenix won an Oscar. Yeah, we're going to do a sequel. So that was kind of the first thing. And then I think the second was Lady Gaga. Lady
Gaga is playing the Harley Quinn equivalent. Again, I don't really know how they're going to be approaching her, but that's kind of the understanding is that is her basic vibe of character in this film. Then we heard it was going to be a musical, which that was probably the most interesting part to hear about.
Given the fact Gaga was there, you're like, well, okay.
But still, I mean, the Joker movie is going to be a musical. Like, okay. Now the latest information we're hearing is that it's going to be considered what they call a jukebox musical. And by that, they mean it's a musical where it's famous songs being kind of redone and performed within the context of the film, a la Moulin Rouge.
I was about to say Moulin Rouge comes to mind.
That's probably a very well-known example of that, where there weren't not any original songs in Moulin Rouge, to my understanding. They were all cover songs that were performed, but performed in the scope of the environment and in the storyline. That seems to be what they're wanting to do here as well. They're also mentioning Mamma Mia as another example of, which again, that makes sense because that was based on the ABBA discography, but still, that's kind of the idea, is that they are looking at this being a jukebox musical, meaning they're saying at least 15 different reinterpretations of very well-known songs inside the film. The only one they've given as an example is that they said, rumored to be, is That's Entertainment, the song from the 1953 musical The Bandwagon that is associated with Judy Garland. So,
and you know what that brings to mind to me? Not an original. It was an original song for the movie, but I can see Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga singing That's Entertainment while destroying an art museum, like in the original Batman with Michael Keaton. He wasn't doing it, but Jack Nicholson was prancing around to the Prince song "Party Time," and that I can see it. I can see that. So.
Bonus points to Chris Fry for bringing up not only that scene, but also identifying the correct song from the Prince soundtrack that went along with that.
I'm one of the 5 people that bought that soundtrack.
Oh no, I was number 4. Okay. So, got you. I played the Bat Dance quite a number of times in Party Time. Oh yeah, that's great. Okay, so some other specifics about the film. So we obviously know we have Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. Zazie Beetz is coming back. She was in the original Joker movie.
I don't know that I knew that she was coming. And apparently maybe me included, I don't know, it's so long ago when we saw it, but some people were theorizing she was going to kind of be a Harley Quinn type person. Because at that point, you didn't know whether they were ever going to do it, but were they trying to use her as kind of like a friend of his or whatever? So, but that's interesting. She's coming back. She is coming back. I did not know that.
And new additions to the cast, Catherine Keener is going to be in the film.
Interesting.
And Brendan Gleeson.
Huh.
Yep. Both the two of them are new kind of characters in the story. So, I'm curious. I'm still very, very curious on this. I think this.
And I think you and I are both big fans of Moulin Rouge.
Oh, yeah.
I had my reservations about Joker. But I can't help but be really interested in how this goes. It does come out this year, correct?
Sure. October 4th. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming out this year.
Okay.
I mean, we haven't seen a trailer yet. I assume that will probably come about April, May.
I hope I don't.
Oh, you will.
I know.
You will.
I'm not going to seek it out.
Chris, you need a tool, or we both need to really do this to ourselves. We need to find out if there's a way to find out at the AMC movie theater where you and I typically go to see. We know that there's a good 25 minutes of stuff that plays before the film.
Right.
And a good part of that is trailers. We need a tool that tells us exactly the time that the movie starts. And we make sure we walk into the theater at that time so that we don't see any of the trailers or we don't get our expectations up or we don't get spoiled or we don't get any of that.
I would like to walk in right as Nicole Kidman is walking in. That's what I want to do. I want to prance into the theater just like she is.
You want to be walking
have the glow hit my face.
Stairs up to the steps as she's doing that as well.
Yes, because that's what usually like the trailers play, and then you have that, and then you're like, thank goodness the movie.
So we need an app.
Yes,
that will tell us for any movie theater chain that you're visiting, for whatever show, whatever movie, what is the time Nicole Kidman walks into the movie theater? Because that's the time you need to walk into the movie theater to not see any trailers. Again, I love trailers, but I realize they are doing me more damage than good in my expectations of films.
Actually, so we'll just do one more request for the app that we're developing here. Just give me a listing. So if it's movies that maybe I haven't heard of, so I'm like, well, maybe I will see a trailer because this is not like, like I don't want to see something for the Joker movie because I know I'm going to see it. I don't want anything spoiled. But if it's some random indie budget film that I'm like, well, no, I'll see that trailer. So I don't mind because like if I didn't see the trailer, maybe I'd never see it because I didn't know about it. But just give me a listing and then give me Nicole's walk-in time. So I kind of decide like, well, maybe I'll go ahead and.
But then the problem would be is if you wanted to see the second trailer.
Oh, that's true. Then
but you don't want to see the third and fourth trailer. Then you're like, well, what do you do?
Right.
Or you could just be like anybody else and just go and watch it online. The trailer you want to watch because they're all there.
That's true.
That may be the way to do it.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're off track here, but it was good theory. Good idea there we have.
Sure.
So that is Joker of, am I saying that right? Folie à Deux?
Close enough. I didn't take French, so but yeah.
So that is coming out October 4th. It's probably, I'm not going to say it's my most anticipated film for the rest of the year. It's the most intriguing film for me the rest of the year because I'm really curious to see what they do, where they're going with this, and how this plays, especially compared to the success that the original had.
Right.
So,
it could be, it could be a huge like boost to like if the rest of the year of cinema is not being that great or something, and then this comes out, and it could be like a huge, huge deal.
Because again,
make tons of
back
money.
in 2019 or whenever the first Joker came out, it was big.
Right,
it made a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, I went to the movie theater twice to go see it.
Oh wow!
I don't typically go to the movie theater a second time. It made, and I think a lot of people did that. It made a lot of money. So. Okay, Chris, let's move on to another news item I teased at the beginning of the show. Timothée Chalamet.
Ah, yes.
Our favorite, Timmy Chalamet, is going to be playing Bob Dylan in a film directed by James Mangold.
Which is interesting. He did the Johnny Cash Ring of Fire, right?
I think he did, yes.
Okay, so he's done biopic.
Yeah.
He's also done like Wolverine movie. But
and he did the Indiana Jones movie, the last one that was played there. But Timothée Chalamet as the iconic American musician, Bob Dylan. The movie is going to be titled A Complete Unknown, which is from a lyric of the song. And,
Okay.
you know, just it works. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, from like a Rolling Stone. Yeah,
Yeah.
got you.
And it's going to follow Dylan's emergence in the New York folk scene during the 1960s after the singer-songwriter moves from Minnesota to New York. So they have put out
So
a
it is,
photograph.
instead of like a whole life story, it's very limited time frame.
It appears to be.
We think.
And I hope that's the case because I don't want to see Timothy Chalamet with tons of makeup on
Becoming
acting
old and
yes,
haggard.
50,
Okay.
60-year-old Bob Dylan.
Fair
So
enough. Fair enough.
I hope they keep it in this time period.
Okay.
They have put out a picture, a set photo of him, and it's Timothy Chalamet dressed like you would expect Bob Dylan to be dressed at the time, looking all forlorn and kind of woefully up in the sky.
Gotcha.
But here's what I thought was interesting is that we do have some other people cast in this film to play other famous people at the time.
Okay.
Elle Fanning is going to be in the films as Sylvia Russo. Monica Barbaro will be Joan Baez.
Okay.
Nick Offerman is going to be in it as Alan Lomax. And Boyd Holbrook will be Johnny Cash. So we are going to have some other
Okay.
musical affiliated people
Yeah, the ones I
at the time
recognize
period.
obviously are Johnny Cash and Joan Baez. I
Right.
recognize. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Supposedly Benedict Cumberbatch is supposed to be in the film playing the role of Pete Seeger, which I'd have to look up and see who Pete Seeger is.
Oh, you know who Pete Seeger is. I can't think of. I say that, and then I can't think of any of his songs right off the bat. But if you heard some Pete Seeger songs, you'd be like, oh yeah, I know who that dude is. I don't know what he looks like.
He's a folk singer though, right?
Yes, but I definitely know the name Pete Seeger, and I know some songs that he's done. I just blanking on it right now. But seems like a weird match to have Benedict Cumberbatch.
You weren't thinking about Bob Seeger though, right?
Oh, maybe
Night
I
Moves.
am. Yes, that's
No,
what
no,
I'm thinking of.
it's not Bob Seger.
Okay, Seeger.
Benedict Cumberbatch is not playing Bob Seger.
That would be
go ahead
amazing.
and-
That would be amazing.
I was going to say that would be a really weird casting choice.
But would kind of be
No,
awesome.
Pete Seeger is an
Seeger.
American folk singer.
Okay.
Back in the 40s and 50s. So
Got you.
he's obviously.
I was like, I know I've heard Seeger. Night Moves. That'd be amazing.
Well, and it's still what's the one he does from what's the one Bob Seger song from Risky Business? Old Time Rock and Roll.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. No, Benedict Cumberbatch is not playing Bob Seger. Okay. Whew, got that out of the way.
Yeah, you don't have to write any letters. We've already corrected ourselves, or Alan's corrected me on the show, so don't.
No, Pete Seeger. Pete Seeger is a
Seeger,
folk singer.
right.
I'm not familiar with Pete Seeger, but
Clearly,
he is,
neither am
yeah.
I.
Right. Yeah. Benedict Cumberbatch was going to play Pete Seeger.
Okay.
He dropped out because
Okay.
of a production delay. So now Edward Norton has stepped in and is playing Pete Seeger, as folk singer. So we got an interesting cast going on with this. And
Yeah, Ed Norton. That's interesting.
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, even Mangold kind of, okay, this does answer our question. This is all from Variety, by the way, this article I'm reading from.
Okay.
Mangold is quoted when he was on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast last year. Speaking about the film, he said, quote, "The best true life movies are never cradle to grave, but they're about a very specific moment." And he says, for this film, it's kind of an ensemble piece about this moment of time, the early 60s in New York, and this 17-year-old kid with $16 in his pocket, hitchhiking his way to New York to meet Woody Guthrie, who is in the hospital and dying of a nerve disease. He sings Woody a song that is wrote for him and befriends Pete Seeger, not Bob Seeger, befriends Pete Seeger,
Right.
who is like a son to Woody. And Pete sets him up with gigs at local clubs, and there you meet Joan Baez and all these other people who are a part of his world.
Okay.
That's going to be the film. So,
Okay.
and I like that approach.
Sure.
That's what I want to see. I want to see these formative times. I don't need to see Bob Seger going through the rest of his career in a film. I don't need to see Bob Dylan going through, God, I got Bob Seger on the mind now.
That's my
So,
fault.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
take full responsibility.
So that is A Complete Unknown. Searchlight Pictures is releasing it, has not set a date yet for the film.
We're going to just assume it's going to be October, November, though, right?
I don't know. I mean, it just seems like they're just now filming
Oh,
it,
okay,
so
so
it may
not
not
this
be.
year.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. It may not be.
But and
Maybe
I
spring of the. Who knows?
got you. I also heard another tidbit that supposedly it's been announced that Timothy Chalamet will be singing his own stuff
Really?
in the film. That's what I heard.
Did he sing for Wonka?
I think he did.
I think he did
So
too.
maybe that, I think he did. I don't remember hearing that he didn't, and it sounded like him. So, yeah.
Did Timothy Chalamet do his own throat loud voice booming for Dune, the Dune movies?
I don't know. I don't know.
He's very talented.
He is. Not as
right.
talented as Bob Seger.
No, he's no Bob Seger.
Right.
Okay. Moving on to our last news item real quick.
Yes.
So I mentioned earlier that I thought, Joker 2 might not be my most anticipated movie of the year, but it's probably my most intriguing movie, like I'm most curious about.
Got you.
A movie I'm not necessarily curious about, but I am eagerly anticipating. And this trailer that was just released, or teaser trailers, got me in the mood, so I'm ready on board to see it. It is Beetlejuice, the Beetlejuice 2, however you want to refer to it. The name is going to be Beetlejuice, which I still think is a brilliant name.
Agreed.
Yeah.
On board with that.
They released a teaser of it. It is a short trailer. Again, I watched it because I'm a glutton for punishment. I have to watch these teaser trailers. Yeah, I mean, as far as teasing goes, it accomplished its mission. I am properly teased. Chris, have you seen the teaser trailer for Beetlejuice?
I have not.
You have not. Do you wish to? Because if you don't want to, don't see it. I'm not going to force it on you.
How long is it?
It's very short.
Okay. See, that's the thing. I don't want to see it, but teaser typically are like less than 30 seconds or whatever. Like,
This is maybe more like a minute, but it is a true teaser in that
like
there
a lot
is
of
no
times
plot.
there's like a lot of text on screen. You just see like flashes of characters or whatever.
There's
so-
no plot reveal in this trailer.
Okay.
It's totally your call. I'm not
Sure.
going to force it on you.
Come on. I can.
You can handle
I'm
it?
probably going to end up seeing it anyway. So
It's
sure.
going to be in every movie theater from here on out anyway. So
Right.
All right, fine. We're going completely against what we just preached
Right.
to get
Railed
in a
against.
previous
Right.
news item, and we're going to
Totally.
watch the teaser trailer for Beetlejuice. Here we go. Let's watch it.
Daylight come and we want to go. Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana. Daylight come and we want to go. Me say day, me say day, me say day, me say day, me say day. Daylight come and we want to go.
The juice is loose.
See, not too spoilery, right?
Not too spoilery, and it just reminds me. I mean, yeah, that I didn't mind seeing. I guess didn't reveal too much, but gave you a lot of signposts from the original film. The covered bridge, which I saw, and I was like, oh, that might have been cool not to see, and now I've ruined it for everybody listening to this. But that was a big part in the original, like because there's something that
Well, just say,
connected with
yeah.
that, and
I think it's just harkening to the fact that the movie does seem to take place in the same town.
right,
So,
and you very reminiscent shots of like streets and like panning out. Like, yeah, it just a lot of times when films wait this long, kind of like you like this film, me, Top Gun Maverick.
yeah.
When you wait that long to do a sequel, it's like, well, surely if they were looking to just cash in, they would have done it 5-10 years. But the fact that they've waited this long to do it, you're like, okay, surely they've had time to come up with a decent story, And you've got so many. You've got Winona Ryder. You've got what's the
Catherine O'Hara.
Yes, thank you, Catherine O'Hara, and of course, the pivotal person you have to have is Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
and yep,
They're all back.
all there, and you're like, okay, the fact that they're because Michael Keaton, Catherine O'Hara, like I feel like. And Winona Ryder's got Stranger Things, so it's like they don't need this.
No, exactly.
And so it's like, okay, they're like, no, I've seen the script. And Tim Burton, you got there. Like, it's
No,
like,
you're right. No, you brought up a good point. None of them need this movie.
Absolutely.
Like
not.
Jenna Ortega is like super it girl right now.
Yeah,
in
because she
every
did
film.
really well with Wednesday.
She's got
yeah.
every film like she's getting booked on right now.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton is staying very busy with plenty of roles right now. Kind of a little bit of a resurgence the last several years for him as well. So yeah, Catherine O'Hara is actually probably more popular now than she was back when the original Beetlejuice came out.
Totally, because she did Schitt's Creek. And so she's like...
So they're all good.
Yeah.
It's just, if anybody needs this movie, it's probably Tim Burton.
Well...
I mean...
That
honestly, other than he's got Wednesday as a hit show on Netflix,
That's
and
true.
he's executive producing that and directing some of those episodes. So, I guess in a way, nobody needed this, and the fact that they're still making it after all these years, you're right. I think it's a good sign.
And supposedly, I guess I heard there again. If a star agrees to be in a movie, they've shot the movie, and then apparently Michael Keaton has apparently seen a cut of it, and he's like, it's pretty good. Now, of course, is he going to say that? Maybe, but like,
but he doesn't have to.
right. He could not say anything.
Right.
But instead, he's like, it's pretty good.
So I'm excited. I'm eagerly anticipating this. I think it's going to be fun, no matter what. I think it's going to be fun. So, looking forward to Beetlejuice. Now that one is coming out. When is that coming out? September 6th.
Okay.
So we got September for Beetlejuice. We got October for Joker.
Okay, so could be
some films lining up this fall that could be some interesting ones.
Some big ones.
Both of them coming out in the fall, which is kind of an odd time for both of them. Neither of them coming out in summer.
And both sequels. You would think they would program them more towards the summer.
I would say that neither of them are really Oscar bait movies, although Joaquin Phoenix did win for Joker, the first one. So who knows? And it got nominated for Best Picture, right?
I believe so. I wonder if it's because of writer's strike, why these got delayed to late instead of summer.
But I would have thought, still, even if you delay them till next summer, it's like both of these seem like movies you want to bring out in the summertime. But But they're also, both of them have a little bit of a darker vibe to them, a little creepier. Maybe they're kind of going for more of that fall time period. But I don't know. It's interesting that I don't know of many big films coming out this summer.
I don't either.
Most of the films we're hearing about are going to be fall.
Right.
So that's...
you're anticipating Kong X Godzilla, or is it Godzilla X Kong? Whatever. I don't even know what it is.
Look, I love my King Kong and I love my Godzilla.
Okay.
I love them together.
Okay.
But this movie looks like hot garbage. I'm just...
Not just garbage, hot garbage.
And listen, I never want to judge a film on trailers and all that. But this movie does not look good. I will go see it. Only because I'm a glutton for punishment and I have to fulfill my personal responsibility to say that I've seen all these films.
Right.
But I'm going in with the lowest of expectations, hoping that something at least decent comes out of it.
Did you watch the Apple TV Plus series, The Monsters?
I watched half of it.
Okay.
I kind of lost interest.
Okay. Monarch or whatever.
Monarch, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, honestly, Godzilla -1 set me on a new path of saying that's where I want to go. I don't want to go down this current track that the American versions are pushing out.
Got you.
I want to go where the Japanese versions are taking us. I want to see more of those.
Got you.
I want them to do a King Kong movie. I want them to do that's where I want them to put their attention to. So we'll see.
Interesting.
Okay, Chris, I think we've covered enough news. Joker 2 coming out in October. It's going to be a musical with a lot of popular songs being covered in it. Timothy Chalamet is going to be Bob Dylan in a very specific time period in his life, directed by James Mangold.
Gotcha.
And Beetlejuice 2 is coming out September, and we saw the teaser, and looks good. Looks fun. All right, Chris, so let's wrap this show up with one last piece. Normally, we kick over to you for a recommendation, but you saw a movie that we had planned to try to review.
Right.
I, unfortunately, was not able to make it to see a screening of this film, so I'm going to leave it over to you to give us a review, and you'll be able to let us know in the course of the review, will this be a recommendation or not, of this film, The American Society of Magical Negroes. So I'm going to turn it over to you. You can set this up just like a proper review. I will just be here to ask questions and to give feedback. So
sure.
Go for it, Chris.
So a line in the film is, "Regret is for white people." Ouch. This line is delivered by Rodney to Aaron, played by David Allen Greer and Justice Smith, respectively. Rodney acts as Aaron's mentor when he is recruited to join the ranks of the organization of the title, the American Society of Magical Negroes. We've discussed 2 films recently that touch on this issue of race, specifically in America, American Fiction and Origin, 2 very different films. This film differs from those 2 in that it is a straightforward comedy, albeit one that doesn't shy away from making observations about the differences one might encounter based on the color of your skin. Obviously, you can tell that's kind of where the film's going. The American Society of Magical Negroes, or TASOM, an acronym I'm sure will catch on, I'm betting my retirement on it, was one of my most anticipated films of 2024. Unlike Drive Away Dolls, which I'd overhyped in my mind and was underwhelmed, I enjoyed TASOM. It appears I'm in the minority, as the brutal 2.4 rating in IMDb seems to indicate. I think for those that heard us review American Fiction and how it did a little like personal, it kind of combined comedy and drama because there was some outright comedy. This doesn't bother with the drama. It's really just a comedy. You take the subject matter that it's talking about, the whole concept of the magical Negro. They actually reference a little bit in the film directly. They show these, it's kind of hard to explain, but when he's inducted into the society, they show him like examples of like what the society has been able to do in the past. They use kind of like a Harry Potter pensieve device where they like show you dreams or show you things that have happened. And they directly winking riffs on the Green Mile, which in that story, the legend of Bagger Vance, which is funny because in that film, that's Will Smith playing Bagger Vance and his son, Justice Smith, is in this movie. So kind of an interesting wink about, hey, your dad was the one playing the magical Negro. So kind of an interesting thing there. So knowing that kind of like, it's serious, but yet it's doing it in an entertaining way. And for me, I kind of knew that this wasn't going to be biting satire, hitting you over the head or anything. Like I knew that. So do I come away with any like major points or like learn? No, but I knew it was basically just entertainment, but it was entertainment that at least had something on its mind rather than just being like a slapstick comedy. So for me, it worked. But like I said, clearly I seem to be in the minority for this film. And I think a lot of people, or it seems from what I can tell online, went into this thinking like, oh, this is really going to be biting satire. It's really going and they came away really disappointed. Kind of like, this was a Saturday Night Live skit that should have only gone on for, 10 minutes and instead was, an hour and 44. And I'm like, I don't know. I thought there was enough there that I enjoyed it. I liked seeing David Allen Greer have a big role. Yeah. Because he's like one of the 2 main characters. And actually, it was interesting too. They also referenced Driving Miss Daisy. The one I thought they were going to do and they didn't, which was Shawshank Redemption. And the only reason I can think they backed off that was because it would have been 2 Morgan Freeman references, Driving Miss Daisy and Shawshank. But so I don't know. The film worked for me. I mean, I could sit here and just list all they have some LA Hollywood satire in there that worked for me. They also make fun of social media companies such as Twitter or Facebook because they have this thing. The company's called Meatbox, and it's MEETBOA, Meatbox, but also meat because you think the connotation is like Meatbox is in MEAT or just a bunch of human bodies glomming So Meatbox, funny. There's like that. That's funny. There's some funny things to do with VR that they actually reference. Rupert Friend plays the CEO of this company. He gives a great, cameo type performance in that. I just so much. So I've already mentioned Justice Smith, David Allen Greer. They're both great. Anne Lee Bogan, who I was unfamiliar with, plays a love interest in the film, Lizzie. She was great. Drew Tarver, also unfamiliar with him. He plays Jason Munt, which is also, that name may be a reference to something I'm not familiar with because it sounded kind of familiar. But the cast, I thought the cast was great. This is a debut, which is one of the reasons it was my most anticipated for the year. It's a debut from the writer-director Kobe Libel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopefully, despite the fact that it has a 2.4 rating, apparently a lot of people hate it, I'm really interested to see what he's going to do next.
Yeah.
Because, there's just a lot of potential there. So, and there's actually one of the things that kind of sold it. There is the very last scene kind of pays off something that you didn't know was a joke, but it's a joke. And I'm not going to, all I'll say is it has to do with a ring that Lizzie is wearing. And there's a payoff of what that ring means. And I'll just leave it at that. But that was at the end, I was like, man, that's awesome. And that was the last thing you see. And that just kind of set me walking out of the theater. I was like, yeah, so it does turn out. This is a recommendation.
Chris is giving a recommendation of the American Society of Magical Negroes.
Or TASM, if you want to help for my retirement fund for coining that phrase. But
right.
it's one you can actually maybe still see in theaters.
Yeah, it's maybe a little short-lived there. But all right, so Chris is giving a recommendation. That's good. I'm still want to go see this film. I still want to see it. Sounds like not anywhere near the satire and biting commentary that what's the film that I really liked? Gosh. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank.
It's a recent film that we reviewed
Like
here
in the
on the
last
show.
few years.
Okay. So not American Fiction, because you were kind of lukewarm on that one.
The one where the guy goes to work at a business and it has to do like customer service and kind of has to put on the Caucasian voice at times. What is it?
Not Sorry White People.
Sorry to bother you.
Sorry to bother you. Yeah. It's not Dear White People. That's a different movie. But sorry to bother you. Yeah, with Lakeith Stanfield.
So not on that level.
No,
of,
not the biting.
This is
thing.
a much
okay.
tamer movie, although it does have something to say.
Perfect. Thank you. I completely forgot. I think people were wanting. That's perfect. Thank you for bringing that movie up. They were wanting this to be a Sorry to Bother You.
Right.
It ain't.
Yeah.
I really like that movie. So
I
no,
do too.
this is not up to that caliber, but I still like this movie, but I don't think it was like a lighter version of that.
That's the impression I got from the last trailer that they put out for the film.
And I remember,
seems to be a much lighter version.
I think we
much
may
tamer,
have. Did we discuss the trailer on the show?
We did, yeah.
And I think you were kind of like, I'm a little.
Well, the trailer made
worried.
it almost maybe turned it into a bit more of a rom-com than I was hoping it was going to be a much more of a satire.
And the way that there is, because it is basically does form kind of a love triangle between Aaron's character, or Aaron and Jason Munt and Lizzie. There is kind of like a love triangle. And that's the problem, is he has to play the magical Negro and just help this white boy.
Yeah.
But the way that's handled, I thought was spot on. I guess a lot of people disagree. but I thought it was
still
great.
very, very curious and very anxious to see this film. So, okay. Thank you, Chris, for that review. I do have to add one correction, though.
Okay. Is it Bob Seger or Peter Seeger? He's
Similar.
not in this film, I remember.
Our apologies. Chris likes to offer our apologies to Delilah and Wayne Smith, who are the actual parents of Justice Smith, not Will Smith. So,
really?
yes. Sorry to break that to you.
That blows, because this. So Justice Smith is not okay. See, that's weird, because when he did, which I have not seen this movie either. I haven't seen this movie, but the Pikachu movie and all the Jurassic Park stuff, I swore that. Wow, man, that is twice in one show.
He is listed on IMDb. Parents as Delilah and Wayne Smith.
See,
so
all this time. No, wait.
Yeah, his godfather is Bob Seger, but
amazing.
Is
Justice Smith also in After Earth? See,
no, that is Will Smith's son.
That's my problem.
Yeah.
Is I just see, and I'll throw my intern, which we all know doesn't really exist, under the bus. That I was assuming
that's Jaden Smith.
Jaden
Smith is
He's
Will Smith's son.
done something besides just After Earth, hasn't he?
Jaden Smith has done The Karate Kid.
Okay.
Didn't he do the remake of The Karate Kid? I think
you're right, with Jackie Chan.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's done some other movies, but no, that is not Justice Smith is so, as far as I can tell, no relation to the Will Smith family.
So in one episode, I have conflated Peter Seeger, or Pete Seeger and Bob Seger, and also Jaden and Justice Smith.
Yes.
Okay.
You have. Yeah.
My apologies. Wow.
Our apologies to both the Seegers and the Smith families.
Emotional trauma you've suffered due to me conflating the two.
This is hilarious. This is great.
Wow. That's terrible.
Yeah,
Okay.
I heard you say that. I'm like,
That doesn't sound
I
right.
don't know if that's right. I'm going to double check that before I jump in.
Now that I think about it, yeah, Jaden and Justice look nothing alike.
No.
So I don't know how. It's just,
Well,
I just heard
Yeah.
a J Smith, and I was like, oh yeah, that's totally Will Smith's kid. And I know he has kids that act, but
I will say,
really-
I mean, in your defense,
Duh.
I do think Justice Smith resembles Will
oh,
Smith.
I totally like
So,
that. Even sells it
totally
even more.
get that.
But
I mean,
totally
his,
not.
yeah, I get it. I could see how that could be something to throw off. But
Wow,
okay,
wow, that's
we've had a fun show.
Shameful.
This has been good. All right, so thank you for that review, Chris. Of the
Yes.
film. I'm still very eager to see this film.
Yes, despite the fact Justice Smith is not related to Will Smith, I still think he did an excellent job
Good.
in this film.
He did.
So
So there we go. We're wrapping up today's show. Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. We had a good spirited conversation. See what I did there?
Spirited,
about
yes.
that film.
That's
And,
worthy of Phoebe. The pun there, yeah. She
Oh, yeah,
Spirited,
that's right.
She'd
Yeah,
appreciate
she did
that.
do that. Joker 2 coming out October. Bob Dylan movie, unknown when that comes out, but it will be probably within a year. Beetlejuice 2 coming out September. And then Chris says, he's recommending if it's still in the movie theater near you, and it'll obviously be online
I would think
fairly
so.
shortly, within probably 60 days or so, the American Society of Magical Negroes. He recommends it as well. So, Chris, that is our reviews and show for today. If anybody has some comments, topics, thoughts, or would like to find something else to do this September in between the screening of Beetlejuice and Joker, what all could they do? Or how could they get a hold of us? And then what should they do?
Sure. They can get a hold of us by sending an email to info@footcandle.org. You can follow us on Twitter at Footcandle Film, Facebook, Footcandle Film Society, Instagram and Threads. We're just simply Footcandle Film. Al and I are also on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing. Alan referenced something that you could do in between seeing Beetlejuice and what was the other movie? The Joker movie.
Joker.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So in between those two films, if you wanted to do something and you happen to be in Western North Carolina, the 2024 Foot Candle Film Festival, September 20th through the 28th, we are more than happy to have you. It's going to be our 10th year. Got a lot of big things planned. So if you can, make it out. We'd love to see you.
All right. That sounds great. We do hope to see you this fall in Hickory for the Foot Candle Film Festival. More information, more details for sure will be coming out about July as far as
Right.
some actual list of films and all the announcements of the schedule will be in July, but that'll be last week of September. So go ahead and put it on your calendars and come plan to join us. All right, Chris, we're going to wrap it up then. Thanks everybody for listening today and hope you enjoyed it. And we'll look forward to talking to you next time.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.